I am Elizabeth Young. I was born in September of 1825 in Port Byron, New York. My father was Brigham Young, and my mother was Miriam Works Young. Sadly, when I was 5 years old, my dear mother died of consumption soon after giving birth to my little sister. Because of my father's conversion to the restored gospel of Jesus Christ and his busy life thereafter, my sister and I were raised for some time by our dear friend, the late Kimball, and then by my kind stepmother, Mary Ann Angel Young. I was blessed to be raised beneath the umbrella of the restored gospel. I married Edmund Ellsworth on July 10, 1842. He had converted to the gospel a year earlier and rushed to Nauvoo to be helpful to the church. Edmund always called me Libby. We were sealed together for all eternity on January 11, 1846, in the Nauvoo Temple, only a few weeks before we all had to flee Nauvoo. We had 8 children through the years, the first born in 1843 and the last in 1861. 4 of them ultimately preceded me in death. Oh, how I love my precious children. Nothing was easy in those days. After the prophet Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram were martyred in 1844, leadership of the church fell to the Quorum of the 12, led by my father. We feared for our lives and finally felt compelled to leave Nauvoo or be driven out or killed. By the time we left Nauvoo, we had 2 dear children, Charlotte, born in 1843, and Edmund, born in 1845. Our little Edmund was Father's very first grandson. Working our way across Iowa was very difficult, with the mud and scanty provisions. Added to that, Father made good use of Edmund by sending him back to Nauvoo to fetch more supplies. We were all pleased that Edmund was able to get everything on Father's list of needs. We finally arrived in the Salt Lake Valley the following year, in October 1847, after a winter spent in winter quarters. The weather in the Salt Lake Valley that first winter of 1847-1848 was bitterly cold, and we lived in a shanty. Our precious 4-year-old Charlotte suffered frozen feet. In October of 1852, Edmund married a second wife, Mary Ann Dudley. I understood the concept of polygamy and was involved in the process of selecting Mary Ann. I welcomed her into my life and my home, and we were fast friends forever after. My dear Charlotte's travails continued when, on Christmas Eve of 1853, at 10 years of age, she was burned to death. I cannot describe the anguish we felt in losing our precious girl. By that time, we had 5 children, and while we mourned, there were 4 other children to care for. So, we moved forward. In the summer of 1854, Edmund was sent on a mission to England. We felt well cared for as we lived near my father, and he ensured that we never went without. While Edmund was away, our 4th daughter, Luna, was born. Edmund returned in 1856, having led the first handcart company across the plains. It was a glorious undertaking. Within 2 weeks after returning, he married 2 handcart girls, Polly Bates and Polly Jones. Once again, I accepted them into our family with open arms. The next 24 years were full of activity, with each of us rearing children while Edmund worked devotedly on behalf of the church and the territory. What a household we had! In 1866, we moved out of Salt Lake City to pioneer again, this time in West Weber, Utah Territory. While there, the government's persecution and prosecution of polygamous men increased, and our life took a different turn. In 1880, Edmund needed to flee Zion to avoid prison. He took the two younger wives and their families and headed south to Arizona Territory, and potentially even Mexico. One option was for me, Mary Ann Dudley, and our unmarried children to join them once they settled. That never happened. Distance and time apart, combined with poverty, made our long-distance relationship difficult. We seldom shared encouraging words in letters, as both of us were struggling with our finances. My married children were very good to me, though. While living in West Weber, I fell and I broke a leg, which healed poorly, and I subsequently limped the rest of my life. I typically wore my long auburn hair in a bun. I enjoyed driving my buggy and had a beautiful little white horse. This is uncomfortable to share, but it has been said of me that I was physically handsome, with a kind, pleasing personality, charitable and free-hearted, with a great love for my family. I hope those things are true. Also, while in West Weber, our dear daughter Rowena died at age 33. I took her two children in and raised them as my own. In 1883, the pioneering spirit caused some of my children to move north to Louisville, Idaho. After a visit there, I decided to stay with them. My children always treated me with such love and respect. How grateful I am for the Lord's blessings in our lives. After a long and eventful life, I died on February 2nd, 1903, in Louisville, Idaho. At my passing, I left behind 4 children, 37 grandchildren, and 50 great-grandchildren. I was eager to be back with Edmund, the love of my life and my eternal companion.